Hello and welcome to another whiskey review, and I must admit what we're going to be looking at today has been around for quite a few years, but it's completely flown under my radar, no pun intended. This is the Naked Grouse. So I've already reviewed the standard Famous Grouse blend, and I've always kind of thought that the Naked Grouse was going to be pretty much the same thing. I've seen this lots of times in the supermarket, and I've always just kind of assumed that it's just the normal Famous Grouse, Naked Grouse, just without a label perhaps. Never really looked at it. It was actually YouTube user William C. Heaney that recommended that I take a look at this one, so when I saw it on offer in the supermarket I decided to give it a little look. It's only when you pick it up and start looking at it that you see, as you can see, there's not very much label at all, so not too much information, but you see that it's actually not a blended Scotch at all, it's a blended malt whiskey. So that is at least two different single malts blended together with no grain whiskey. So they don't make a big deal of this, because I've seen this for years and years, never actually realised that it's a blended malt, but hopefully that means that the quality of this should be a big step up from the standard Famous Grouse blend. Other than the fact that it is a blended malt Scotch whisky, we know that it's 40%, it's no age statement, and looking at it, it's probably artificially coloured and almost certainly chill filtered, but we know all that. That's pretty much what you expect when you pay £21 for a bottle of Famous Grouse whisky. So let's get on, see if it's any good. So another thing that I did forget to mention, which is stated on the box, not on the label, is that they mature this blended malt whisky in Oloroso sherry casks. So that would lead me to believe that they take all of the different single malts that they intend to put into this whisky, and they then marry them together in Oloroso sherry casks. And the first thing that really jumps out at you on the nose is those Oloroso sherry casks. They're not lying when they say that it's been matured in Oloroso. It is very noticeable, and it's actually really good. Getting really strong notes of really nice, rich Oloroso sherry. Some nice effervescent sherbet notes, some sweet orange juice, sweet fizzy oranges, some chocolate, and also some malty cereal. There's a bit of a note in there that's a little bit like those biscuits that you get with the cow on them. Milk Keks, is it? You can get a milk chocolate dipped version. It smells a little bit like that. So that's really promising so far. That's a really good nose. Let's see how it tastes. So again, on the palate you're getting lots of savoury sherry notes, really good quality Oloroso casks have gone into this, it's really apparent. Terry's milk chocolate orange and some sweet orange juice. Also getting a little hint of plasticine on the palate, and later on you're getting a little bit of a fudgy note, but it's really buried underneath the sherry. As for the finish, I'd say actually medium long. It's actually doing remarkably well despite the 40% ABV, and again you get lots of effervescent sherry notes and orange juice on the finish, which does actually linger quite a bit. I have to say that it's slightly thin, but overall it does really well for being 40%. So for a grade I'm going to go with a solid B. It does really well even despite the low ABV, and it's much better than anything that you might expect with Famous Grouse on the label. And to be honest, I'm actually tempted to go a little bit higher than a B on this, but I think for now we'll call it a solid B. There's actually something very nostalgic about the sherry in this one. I'm not sure why, but it really reminds me of blends from decades ago, when I was younger and someone would offer me a little bit of whiskey at a party or a family gathering. That sweet sherried nose especially really reminds me of blends from back in those days. It's a sweet whiskey, not in the realms of Pedro Jimenez sherry finished whiskies, which tend to be a bit jammy and sort of overpower the whole experience. It's not like that, but it is quite sweet, but not overly sweet. I'd actually say that the closest thing that I've ever had to this is probably the Glendronach 12-year-old, And that's really quite shocking to say, but I really mean it. If you like your sherried whiskey, definitely give this one a try because it's so cheap, especially here in the UK. I got this one for £21. You really can't go wrong. I think the biggest mistake they've made with this whiskey is actually putting Famous Grouse on the bottle and not doing more to differentiate it from the standard Famous Grouse products. And I also noticed, if you look at the box, this has apparently won a gold medal at the Bartenders Awards for taste, silver for design, and gold for value. And if you look at the side of the box, it's giving you a recipe for something like a whiskey sour, which all points to them suggesting that this is for mixers, that it's not for sipping or drinking neat. And I think that's really a shame. It does make me wonder how many people out there, people that really appreciate their whiskies, have done what I've done and not looked at this one because it's got Famous Grouse on it, and they're really missing out. So highly recommended. Go out and grab yourself a bottle, and thanks again to William for pointing me towards this one. Cheers.